Hey, hello, how you doing? Sorry I'm late. I forgot to press go live. You kind of have to press twice, and I only pressed once. So I had a great start. It was epic. You missed it. It's gone in the ether now. How you doing, everybody? I'm gonna put the link in chat. If people want to join, you're welcome to. We do a bit of a topic tonight, but it's those Sunday night stream, right? It's people who are free to we can go astray a bit. So tonight I wanted to talk about game. Hello, Justin. How you doing?
Good. You?
Good. Can you hear me well?
This fine Sunday.
Yeah. How's the sound? The what? Sorry.
Sunday.
Sunday. Did I make a mistake in the? Oh yeah.
Yeah, you left the end out.
All right. Well, I always want to leave
Sunday.
the N out.
Sunday.
I'm surprised you're complaining from me letting the N out. All right.
I will
There you
not
go.
stand for this unfettered bigotry.
Yeah. Hello, Bear. How you doing? I'm glad to have you
There.
on because, especially since this topic is a bit inspired by you talking about Bastard Sword the other day.
Uh-oh, what did I do?
I just want to, I love talking about game design. I love talking about game mechanics, right? And I want to
Yeah.
talk about different game mechanics from different game that we like and try about what they bring about to the play experience. That's what I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean, when in board game, because I know you're also like a board gamer, we have this list of mechanics that we can talk to people, and they know what we talk about. We say, oh, there's resource management, there's push your luck, there bidding, or blind bidding, there back building, deck building, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of those mechanics do appear in some form in role playing game, right? And there's some game that have more than other and some game, and I think I think the push your luck is one that I like a lot, right? Push
Yeah.
your luck mechanic, and you see them in some game like the free league game, for example, when you can re-roll a failed dice roll, but
Mm.
if you fail again, or you expose yourself to a more severe consequence, right? And there's some
Yeah.
game that don't have that. And at some point, like if I take an example of it, I don't know if you guys ever played like games like a Talisman, the board game.
Talisman. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
played it, but decades ago.
yeah. Talisman, or like a shoots and ladder is even a better example.
Shoot.
Right?
Yeah. Snakes and ladders.
Snakes and ladder, same thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a game that it's not. It's barely a game. It's a game that plays itself, right?
Yeah. You just kind of
You
move
just
the spaces and then do the
exactly.
consequences. And so.
You just roll the dice and you move your peon. And the reason it's barely a game, that it's a game that plays itself, is because you have no choice to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think in role playing game and in game in general, it's better if we have to be able to make choices when we play. Hello,
Everybody
Angar.
streams on Sunday, man.
Everybody except Hungar.
Yeah, everybody
It's
stream on Sunday.
Oh, he fixed it. Damn. I was
I
I
making
did.
a
just got
joke.
home.
Hmm?
I
So
just
okay,
got
so
home
sorry,
from my
sorry,
parents' house.
sorry, Max. What's your question? Because you just preambled me all the hell that I don't even know what the question is anymore.
I want to talk about game mechanics
Sure.
that that bring something to the experience. And I want when I say oh, I like this in role playing game, this kind of
Yeah.
mechanics, and this is what I think I bring. It brings choice, it brings excitement, it brings more randomness, whatever you think it makes the game because you were talking about those class and
Yeah.
and you say like, oh, it brings the dopamine, right? And I say it's kind of the wrong fun.
Well, it's not that it brings the dopamine, it's that it gives. So something I've learned, and Hungar, you might actually relate to this because I know you're a D&D fan more than me at the end of the day. I've noticed that when I use a game that doesn't have classes for fantasy, only for fantasy, players either get lost in the wash or they don't really understand what their character does, and they sort of build the character, but they're never truly happy with it. But the minute I run a game like a D&D or a Pathfinder beginner box or something like that, then there's classes. They know what they want to play. They're right in right away. They know they have an idea of who their character is going to be right out of the gate. They usually have something like, I want to play a paladin, but and they it's like, it seems to me providing direction through the game itself can ameliorate or enhance the player experience.
I've seen that multiple times. I am a fan of classless game systems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like classless systems. I like skill-based game, but I've noticed a lot of times that people, if they have their defined role in front of them, it seems like they are easier to get into the game, get more in tune with their character, know what they're going to do, as opposed to a guy who's got some skills that he can do.
Yeah,
But like doesn't have a defined role. People need a defined role. I find a lot of times in games.
Yeah,
and when we play video games, like me and Justin, we play Conan. I'm always the armor maker and the archer. When I build my character and I place my stats, I always make an archer based character who makes all the armor for the guild. That's what I do. I don't know why. I don't have to do that every time, but it just seems like if you got your role that you're going to do, it's just going to be a lot more fun for a lot of people.
Where I am the human sacrificing builder that builds all the buildings and sacrifices people just for the fun of it. I don't even need to sacrifice people. I just run around and sacrifice them.
But it's like the mechanics that you like to engage with. And I remember like when Bear during this conversation about the bastard sword you were having, you were mentioning like the analysis paralysis. When people have too many options, if you give them 3 choice. Like, isn't there something in sales like they say like give people like
there's a sales rule, which is if you give people 2 choices, they're going to pick the cheapest. If you give them more than 3 choices, they're going to probably not buy anything because there's too much and they have to think about it. But if you give them 3 choices, low, medium, and high, they tend to pick the one that most suits their need or their desire. Now, how you choose to sell the high is your business at that point in time. But the idea is not to overwhelm them with choice. It's to just get them like, well, here's the economy one. This one's pretty good. It'll get you through. But if you really want the bells and whistles, here's where you need to go. And that helps.
I did the exact same thing. We were taught to do the exact same thing when I was in the timeshare industry. We would push them for the every week. And then, then we'd let them know about you could buy where you get a week every other year instead of every year. But if that's not good for you, then we have this third option where try it before you buy it. It costs you a little bit of money. You can go to any one of our resorts, check it out, and if you like it, then you can buy it, and the money you spent can go toward down payment. And 9 times out of 10, they would buy a timeshare. And it's like you're saying, you give people a choice, even when it comes to games. It's like, hey, we can do this, this, or this. They're going to look at the option. They're going to pick what suits their character or their idea of how the game should go for them.
Plus, as we get older, we're playing more with people who have lives, children, jobs, responsibilities. So it's not like when we were in college and we could just go, well, I'm going to spend the entire weekend reading this game and maximizing out the best possible character I can that really suits my needs with my point total. It's like, well, I want to play on Thursday. I haven't had time to make a character. Can I just be a knight? How do I be a knight? You know what I mean? And then, so I think I've grown to see the benefit of the D&D style class level system. And because the level is the dopamine hit. Getting those levels, those dings, that's the dopamine hit. Think about it. I've never run a game like, say, BRP or any type of builder game where it's build your character as you go, where you get like points every session. I've never had people go, do I get any points? Do I get any points? But man, I've seen people in D&D style games go, "Hey, when do we level? Are we going to level soon? How many points do we need to level?" Like they want it, they get into it, you know. So I think that helps.
Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
I'd say the back to the
Who are we
ramble
waiting
you did
for?
at the beginning.
Young Master Gregory.
Tell Greg I said hi. The fewer choices you have, the less it becomes a role playing game. Just generally, because that's the purpose, in my opinion. Role playing games is opportunity for.
I would tend to agree. Like in role playing game, you're supposed to have like a lot of freedom. Like there's a certain point, like clearly you turn into like the board game. Like if you just like have a character that can like have a path, maybe 1-2 paths. You know, I play like Zombicide, right? You play a character as a set character with his class, and then you can choose 1 or 2 options every time you level. You know, now you're on the board game path, right?
Okay, but so let me ask Justin a question. Then you said that the less choices you have, the less role playing you're going to do, or whatever, however you phrase that. I apologize for misphrasing you.
No, it's generally what I'm feeling. Like the vibe. The less I feel like it's a role playing game, the fewer decisions I get to make for my character.
So what
Justin
I'm doing
wants to make every decision that's involved.
Not all of them, but I want to be the main decision maker when it comes to the character.
Okay,
like,
that's fair. So what I'm trying to do with Bastard Sword is I'm making you make choices as you build your character, right?
Yes.
So the first choice you're going to make is your race. Then within your race, there's going to be a sub-race potentially for some of the races. You might pick that. That's going to give you stuff. It's going to give you stuff. Then you're going to pick a background, which is where your character comes from. What did they used to do? Were they a merchant? Were they a slave? Were they a soldier? And that's going to give you some stuff. Then you're going to pick your social class, which is where do you rank within your own culture? Are you upper class, middle class, lower class, or underclass? Where do you fit in there? That's going to give you some stuff. Then you're going to pick an archetype: fighting, magic, or skills, right? Like, are you a martial character? Are you a magical character? Are you an expertise-based character? Now more choices, stuff to fill out. Then you pick a subclass, and each one has about 7 different subclasses for them. So again, you're just going through a funnel of making decisions and getting stuff for it for making those decisions. I'm not sure if that would scratch the itch for a guy like you, but I know a few people who have done it. They really like that form of character creation because they feel like they're almost on a life path at that point. And
that's what I was about to say. It almost like sound like a life path. Or the class directly linked to or unique to every race.
Yeah, I've read through the Bastard Sword rules, and I really like the character creation.
Which version did you read, if I don't mind my asking? Was it
10.3? The last one that you put on drive-through.
Yeah, that's 10.3. That's what I'm going back to, because I went off into a version 2. So that's version 1.10.3. I then went into version 2, and I'm off to version 2.4 right now, and I'm not liking the direction I went, and I'm finding myself looking back at the 1.10.3. So yeah, so that's the thing, right? So yeah, okay. Sorry to interrupt. I was just very curious as to which one you're.
No, it seems like a fun system. You got to read through it to really get the gist of it. It's not one of those games where you're just going to pick up and glance through the book and figure, I could do this, that's it. When you're making your character, it seems like you actually have to contemplate what you want that character to be.
Now,
when you make your decisions, you've got to think about, okay, if I take this is going to help me with this. If I take this and you can actually tweak your character to be the character that you want it to be, but it's not like rolling up character in 10 minutes.
No.
Now, I'm not against like the ability to replace a decision with a die roll. Like, so if I have a chart in front of me of options, if they're numbered so I can roll a die to pick it for me, I'm okay with that. I like that. But I want the option between those two.
So pick or roll, it would be what it would say at the chart, right? So like say your class abilities, like for example, let's say with the archer subclass, there's a bunch of archer tricks that you get. And at first level, let's say you get 2 of them. You're saying I'd like to be able to pick one or roll randomly for one if I can't decide.
Yeah. Okay. So if I feel myself having that analysis paralysis, I can just, there's 8 options here. They're numbered 1 through 8. Pick the D8 up, drop it on the table, and that's the one. If it doesn't absolutely say no to me, I put that one on my sheet.
It's funny. I've actually never thought about that. You gave me something to think about, Justin. Thank you.
Now, what I would do, Bear, in your game situation is I would not let the characters pick their social standing.
You'd make them roll their social status.
Yes, because a lot of times you're going to see people, they're going to want to pick the higher levels, but you can get a lot of stuff from being a lower social standing character. And
Yeah,
people
it should
don't,
just be
there's like, "Hey, I can get these skills, but damn it, I don't want to be a peasant." Well, guess what? You don't get to choose how you were born. You can pick what you did in life, but you don't get to pick whether your parents are Billy Bob or Donald Trump. That's all random shit. So just deal with it.
Well, I'm a
No, that's
Thornton,
true.
good sir, so I have no problem if my dad was Billy Bob.
Exactly.
But depending on the system, like sometimes like it could be advantageous for the type of character you want to build to become like if you want to build a thief, maybe like being from the underclass is better, right?
Yeah.
If you want to build a
Like,
knight,
so yeah, and then you get into making some choices, and I don't want to turn your video into me talking about my system. I mean, I want to just continue going.
no, it's those are game design talks, so
Yeah.
it's legit.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm gonna
Oh
talk
yeah,
about
like
mine as well.
Mr. Bex is totally against game design talk.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Are the
but
I asked earlier, I didn't have a reply. Sorry. The choice that you make, like when you pick your race, then you pick like a background and stuff like that. Is it dependent? Or are they linked to the race? You know, is it really a funnel, or are they like kind of independent?
So there's two versions, I guess I would say, of how you would look at it. There's basic bastard sword, which is this is generic, fit it to your world.
Mhm.
Here's an elf, here's a dwarf, here's a this, here's a that, blah 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 blah. Then there's my setting version of bastard sword, which is here are the actual in-game races like my ash elves and stuff like that, and they have specific things about them. So, for example, in generic bastard sword, if you're playing in dwarves can be mages. Go ahead. But if you're in final age, they can't. They're magic dead. They're magic mute. They can't learn magic, so they have to do other stuff, right?
But like for like the social class, for example, like is it different if you're like a lower class as a dwarf than if you're lower class as a human or whatever?
Well, yeah, each culture is going to have its own version of what that means, right?
Okay,
so if you're an upper class human, you're rich, you're living a better life than the average person. If you're an upper class barbarian human, well, that just means you're like the son of the tribal lord. You know what I mean? Your life's not particularly better than Bob, regular guy. You know.
Now here's my thing. Okay, so you want to be a knight, but you roll and you start off as the peasant class. There's nothing better as the start of a good backstory than somebody who started off as a peasant and worked his way up into knighthood.
You're starting to play as a hedge knight, maybe, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
So it's like the social standings. You can use that for a lot of different things, and you can write. I used to make characters where, what were you before you were a fighter? Well, I was a farmer. I didn't want to look at the ass end of a mule for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's increasing your social standing in life is a big motivation for many people, right? It's like that's what we try to do. We want to improve a lot, except me, but it's just kind of weird.
That's what WoW has going, or not WoW, World Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing has going for it. Is like, okay, my character started off as a fence, and he's a low social standing, like Silver 3, which is like as low, almost as low as you can get because I'm still selling goods, right? Now I'm a duelist. I have a much higher social standing, which gives you different abilities in the game when you're dealing with NPCs and stuff like that. Because I went from, being just a schmo who sells shit to being a guy who's, super badass with a rapier and pistols. Mm-hmm. So your class, that's one thing I really like about Warhammer Fantasy is when you advance in the game, you can advance your social standing.
Yeah, and that's something that's interesting because it's something that's absent from regular D&D. You don't really have like a social class. You can have like a background like I was born a noble, but it's so like meaningless in the game that you lose this old point of like, you know what? I was fucking born a peasant. What my guy want to do is become a noble at some point or become noble. It's like it's completely absent from the game. All this social economic kind of a status, but it's so important to human experience that
And that's what I
It's an
really
interesting
like about
addition.
games with a social standing,
Mm.
because it does, I think, flesh out the player character for the person who it fleshes out your character for you. It
Yeah.
gets you more involved in your character, for me anyway.
Yeah.
Where I started from the bottom, now I'm here, type of bullshit.
Hey, Jenny from the block.
Yeah.
But Hungar from the block. But here's the thing. I don't want a mechanical way in the game to increase your social standing. I don't want that. And the reason why is I go to Berserk as the perfect example. Griffith.
Yeah.
Griffith is underclass when he starts.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a mercenary and becomes basically he's a peasant class. Then he builds himself up through wealth and successful campaigns to being a middle class, starts rubbing elbows with the higher ups, gets
Yep.
made a noble, and immediately suffers the backlash of all the other nobles go, fuck this guy, he's not noble, we're going to fuck with him as hard as we can until we destroy him. If you put a mechanic like that in the game, it feels arbitrary and false. But if you do it through the story and the play and what the characters are doing, and they can earn that nobility, then that's something. That's something they'll appreciate.
But
even,
starting off with a class, starting off.
yeah, exactly. Even if you don't have like a mechanic in the game for the improvement, if you explicitly state the social class of the character at the start,
yeah,
I would put a box on the character sheet to remind the character, you should be aware of this title you're holding. But
do you think that the social class thing was more present in old school D&D? Because like it was assumed oftentimes that a character was started as nobody, but at some point as you gain level, you would become like a baron and shit like that.
It was weird. I never felt they handled it well. I remember there were some Dragon magazine articles about it where they introduced tables and shit, and I always thought it was really weird.
How they tried to do it was you start off pretty much as a Joe Schmo, and the more levels you got, then you start getting henchmen and stuff like that. And I think that's what they were trying to do with social class in D&D. The more notoriety you got, the more reputation you got as being a stand-up dude. You're going to have people who are starting to come to want to follow you because you're a noble person and all of this. That was their attempt at having a social standing in the game. I think that they failed at that attempt. It's like I've never really been as oh, big deal, yay, I can have some freaking henchmen. That just means that I have to pay for idiots to follow me around, and I can leave them at home when I go on adventures because I'm not going to bring them with me to the adventure. So it seemed like those
Hungar is our American of the service.
He's our token American.
I'm token. It seemed like those
you're the first one that's going to die.
The henchmen seemed like a waste of time to me.
Yeah, I never thought he was handled very well.
There's no attempt to play them or use them for anything.
It's something I've tried to do in fantasy games. Is I go, okay, look, guys, you can't carry all this gear on your backs. Like you've bought all this equipment, you better get some pack horses, and maybe you want to hire some hirelings that follow you around and take care of shit for you at this point in time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And man, you want to see players balk at spending coin on something? Convince them to hire a bunch of fucking nobodies to watch their camp while they're in the adventure. Man, they don't want to do it.
That's always pissed me off about horses too, especially in dungeon crawls. Oh, okay, so you're going on an adventure. Well, your horse is going to be left outside, or you're going into a dungeon. Your horse is left outside of the dungeon. How come there's never rolls to see if the wandering monster doesn't come by and just decide to steal and or eat your horse?
Or they just they get spooked and run off because an owl hooted or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm a firm believer in having as many people outside of the dungeon as you have in it.
Inside, having a retinue.
Yeah, having as many people outside or more, guarding your base camp. You know,
No, I think I think it should be a thing
periodically
as well.
coming
But
in and
it's
fixing
true. What Bear says is true that players don't fucking want to hire people. They don't want to deal with like the retinue and stuff like that. They don't want to.
I'll tell you one thing that does change their mind is the first time you convince them to hire a bunch of low-level fighters to go into the adventure with them, and then when the fight breaks out, you give an even number of them. Like here, each of you controls one of the guys in the fight as well as your own character. Oh, they get into that real quick because then they start coming up with tactics on how they can use that pawn to benefit them, and it's more interesting. I'm gonna make a cup of coffee. I can hear you guys. I'll be right back.
And those are the guys ferrying your loot back to the base camp, right?
Yep.
So you select half of them or whatever to carry a bunch of treasure back.
Yeah, but you know what, Justin?
Yeah.
Not everybody plays D&D like you play Conan, where you loot everything and sort it out at the end.
Every fucking pillow.
I'm taking the goddamn pillows, and if you don't like it,
oftentimes it's all about the loot. But like if you don't do the encumbrance thing, then there's no point because you're just gonna fucking put everything in your bag of holding, and then that's it. If you don't have a bag of holding, and you can only carry so much, then hiring somebody to help you carry shit is actually gonna pay for itself, right? Because you're gonna be able to take more shit from the dungeon.
I've played a game like that. It can be fun. And that's where I get I'm looting the damn pillows, damn you, from.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't say my advice is make the character creation fit the game and constrict it to avoid parties, having third wheel and other things. I think having the character creation fit the game, it's important, but that's the thing as well. Like that's the thing that's worth discussing. I think like what kind of like, because I do believe that some method of character creation works better for certain game than other, right? If I play a game that's just a dungeon crawl, right? We go into dungeon, we kill stuff, and like I might not do a very in-depth life path system where I know all like the number of siblings that my character has and stuff like that, because it doesn't matter, right?
It depends on the game, and it depends on how in-depth I think that you want to get into your character's background. Some people want to dive really deep into the character background. I've seen this issue. I know you guys have probably seen it, where somebody shows up with a freaking 40-page character background.
Yeah.
No. Well,
and then you see people who's like, oh, you got people like me who's like, oh, my dude was a farmer, didn't want to farm no more. That's his background.
Well, you can negate that. You can negate that a lot by integrating it into the funnel system, or like what Bear's talking about. If you integrate character
background
story into that,
that's when we talk about the life path, right? Like that's what I do with WinterDarn. Like you pick up. It's similar to what Bear do. You pick up your race, your sub race and stuff like that, and then you say like, well, where did you grow up? You grew up in a city. What kind of city was it? And what kind of social class were you? And you make all those choices, and every choice that you make gives you an element of your character. So then, just by making those choices, then you know kind of who your character is, right? You know, like, I grew up in a city that was like very rich, very wealthy, and it was on a port. And I was middle class. My father was an artisan. So you got all this background already, and it all contributed to the skill that you start the game with.
Conan 2.20 does a system. System is kind of like that, and I really like a game where the character generation is you funnel it through a life path.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my bread and butter, man.
Yeah, that's what I prefer as well. But I would also see that it might not be appropriate for some game. If you like some game, you just want to make a character very quick because the game is very little, and you're just gonna make it up. Like if the character survives to level 2, then you're gonna fucking think about to level 3, then you're gonna think about the backstory.
You're not gonna want that for like a one shot. You don't want to. Exactly. You gotta have I like the fact that you could, I would like a system where you could have an in-depth character creation, or you could have a very basic character creation for, a game that's not going to go on. But I find that, games are a lot more enjoyable with the intention that you're going to play this game for a long period of time. When you make a character, this is going to be your character, and you're going to play this.
I must say life path is best for most one-shot. That's interesting.
Hey, it gives you an instant character, right? That's the one thing about a life path.
Yeah.
And I just had a thought while I was making coffee, listening to you guys talk. First of all, to address the rune statement, I don't think there's such thing as a third wheel character. I think it's a third wheel player, because any character can be useful. And I've seen so many times the character you never thought was going to be useful turns out to be the star of the event because they're just good player, right? But for the life path, I just had a crazy thought while I was making my coffee, which is okay. So I'm doing social class, background, cultural. Also, there's also what type of culture you're from, class, blah, 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 blah. But now I think I'm going to add an extra section to the life path called the call to adventure, where you can pick.
I actually have that.
Well, there you go. I'm going to add that for mine. I'll look at yours and see what I can steal, since Bastard Sword is just a stolen game. And this idea where you can either pick or roll the catalyzing event that made your character decide to go out now and do this and leave their life behind. And it could be mundane, moderate, or fantastical, right? And you'll get something from each of them: some skill, some gold, some something. You know.
Yeah. I have two things at the end. It's one is what motivates your character. Like, are you motivated by fortune, by fame, by doing the right thing, by virtues? Like, so I have this and the call to adventure. So what made you quit your normal life and become an adventurer? So those can be linked, but are not necessarily linked.
Now I'm hearing a lot of positives from this, where you can get different skills, gold, weapon, whatnot. There should be a little bit of negative.
Danger. Ooh.
Like, okay, you're an adventurer. You ran out of town, or your family was betrayed, or something like this, and you're getting this, and this because of that. But
you're losing.
There's a certain group of people who are still after you.
Yep. You make it.
What do we call it? What do we call it? A tragedy?
A tragedy,
Right, and then they can pick a role, like what happened. Oh yeah, this is your call to adventure. This is all the stuff you are. But here's this other catalyzing event that happened. Your lover was killed, and you were, the mother of your child was murdered by orcs. Something that's like a dark.
You were framed for a crime that you didn't commit.
Yeah.
So
I have those.
The authorities are after you.
You're used to being a wealthy man, but your fortune's been taken from you. So
I have those in a life event. Like sometimes you can you can start as a noble, but you can be like kicked down a social class or move up a social class, stuff like that. So you can have a kind of a bit of both. But you should have a negative.
Like that.
The only thing that I would say be careful with is usually I always say like you want to. Like we're telling the story of those characters, so we don't want to have the interesting stuff of the characters' life happen off screen, right?
No, but you want a hook. You want something. You want something that they can share with the other characters. So my last playtest of Bastard Sword, one of the characters that my buddy Renzo was playing was a barbarian, and his name literally meant deadborn, which means he was born. His mother died while he was born, but he was born and brought back to life by the shaman, right? So within his tribe, he was sort of like, it's the deadborn, and people were very about him. And then he married, and he had a son. And then something happened, and they died. And he had to take them to the barrows, and he doesn't know what happened with the barrows. He has weird dreams, and then suddenly he's standing outside the barrows, no dead wife, no dead son, with a fucking sword in his hand, and, time to go. That eventually led to his death because it was a cursed item. But that was a little bit of a backstory that drove him as a character. It pushed him as a character. And it wasn't stuff that he would have thought of. We just hashed it out together. What I'm saying is if you have that as a rollable type thing, something minor, not as big as that, but just something minor, it's a hook that you can give the character. Aragorn being, the secret king, or, I don't know what else. I'm tired. But you know what I mean? Like just things.
I like what Grandma's saying right
Wait,
here.
I'm gonna go back to it. Like just one minute. I just wanted to say I feel the chill say because like Traveler, right? Traveler does something that used to be like, oh, you can die in character creation. It changed. It's not true since like a second edition. Now you have the option that you don't die, but you get into debt. So now you start with this large amount of money that you owe. So that's one thing. That's one way that you get a negative by And I guess you were going to this comment angle, right? Exactly. Why do we let people choose a life of adventure? Yeah, and she say like duty, desperate, crime, patriotism, helping other, religion, excitement, exploration, fame and fortune. Yeah, I think there's a good list. But like I would like the desperate. that I would put in call to adventure, because I say I have call to adventure and motivation.
Yeah.
Like, you're forced into it because, like, oh, your fucking farm burned down, and you lost everything you own, so now you have to do something else. So you become an adventurer, or whatever. Or you get bored, or there's one thing. But then, like, maybe you want to, maybe it's duty, maybe it's patriotism that's motivates you. You want to serve your country. Maybe you want to, if you're a religious character, you want to prioritize. Ah, fuck! You want to convert people.
Now you got me doing it. You fucker.
Proselytize.
Proselytize.
Oh, yeah, fuck, man. I won't get it.
Prostitute.
All right, guys, I'm going to bounce out here.
Hey, I told you he was the first to go.
Having a lot of fun, but I'm going to play some video games.
All right, man.
Fun.
Have fun. Take care.
Party on, man.
It is
Thank
time
you for
man.
dropping by. Yeah.
The first life path I ever encountered was Cyberpunk, and I always thought that I loved the Cyberpunk life path system, right? Because players, it was like gambling for them. They were like, "Oh, maybe I'll get that windfall and get extra money," whatever the case may be. You the year by year from 16 to whatever age you were, roll one for the year. You got allies, you got enemies, you got good things, you got bad things. And I liked that. I always thought that was fun. Especially in a game where characters are going to die that quick. It's nice to be able to just roll one up as opposed to have to think about it and put effort into it. So that's kind of, But I think in fantasy you need less of that, because you don't want to have this massive life before they become an adventurer. You don't want them to be, the greatest guy on the planet. Like you said, their story happened off screen. No. You just need a little bit for people to discover, and then go from there.
It should influence the way your character is thinking, not become their story. The story's yet to happen.
And when you own a background to the nth degree, you fence your character in, and I like it when it develops organically through roleplay. And I think that's a fair, like, in the life path, I think they need to be like broad enough.
Yeah, little hooks, just little hooks.
And then you can fill in the detail, right?
And like I said, only two for me, right? What the call to adventure is, and now from your conversation, one tragic thing from your backstory. Now it could be simple as tragic as like you falling out with your family, and you're disowned now, or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one sentence, and then you detail it, and you can detail it later on play, right? When it comes like somebody like you don't need to decide up front, but then you had a falling out with your family for some reason. It's on the character sheet as a note, and then at some point, like, somebody asks you, "Oh yeah, this is what happened," and then you elaborate based on the world and stuff like that.
Or some players might take that as a point to build in immediately what happened, so they know and they have that motivation in their head. So, but it's just a hook. It's not 20 things,
Exactly, and it's not like, oh, a lord slept with your mother, and then that would be like too specific. You want to keep them like broad, like,
That would be weird. Anyway, listen, I'm going to be Hungar 2 here. I got to bounce out as well because I got to go to bed soon. And honestly, as much as I like talking to you guys, we can easily go till 2 in-the-morning. And I got to get up for work at 5:30. And Friday was fucking hell after that Thursday night craziness.
I think the last time you were on, we ended up closing down at 5.
Oh God, no.
Like
when was that? Because that was the night. I mean, the last time was the night we told you to go to bed because you were drunk. Don't tell me you guys came back on.
No.
The last Sunday.
The last Sunday. Yeah.
The last Sunday.
Decided.
Now we suspended the reading every chat comment policy. Since then, it wasn't viable anymore.
Well, you're getting too popular, man.
But anyway. we did them all back then. So we finished like at 5 or 5:30. Was something insane.
Well, Tuesday night, if you want to hang out, when I do my thing, I'm going to be basically breaking down my new direction. I'm not going to be writing the game, but I'm going to be breaking down into what everything needs to be, so that way I can write from that point of view. So check it out. Anyway, nice to see you guys. RPG Grandma, I'm leaving just as you walk in, but it's nice to see you.
My hand over.
Peace, love, geek, guys. See you
later. Take care, Bear. And RPG Grandma for the first time on my channel. Well, welcome. Nice seeing you.
Hello.
How are you doing? So now we're talking about
have a good night.
Apparently now we're talking about like a life path creation. Hello. Do we have to watch my language?
Yeah, life. In growth and life. Yes, I do. Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can hear you. Oh. Yeah, the microphone's on.
No, sir, I'm playing Call of Duty. I'm just showing these kids.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Dystel was saying earlier, what's the difference between life path and class? Class come more as a package,
What?
as a role, and life path or like element that happened in your life that made it who you are. It's like it's like
Yeah, class is more of a package.
yeah, it's like the class is gonna be the package. It's gonna be like a big chunk that you choose that is gonna be your role, and then you from there you can explain how you got there. While life path is like the little element that comes through your life that's gonna lead you to be something, to fulfill a role or something.
Yeah. A class will fill out your entire sheet, where life path goes out section by section.
Life path is more of your background that got you to the place you are now.
Yeah, and it might influence stats and stuff, but depends on how the system's built out.
Arun was saying earlier, one big advantage of a class-based game is you get a lot of art to look at of class to get people going instead of miscellaneous character, a fighter, a cleric of a specific general look. That's an interesting take. You think that a class is easier to figure out a character because you have those big tropes?
Yeah, if you're like a casual, because
which we're not here.
Yeah, if you're a person. Well, you can be a casual without being like an all the time casual. You just like playing this particular game casually instead of putting your full thought into it, right? Which is okay, right? If you're just doing a pickup game or whatever, you don't want to invest all the oolongs into it. If you just want to like pick up a quick character and not put much thought into it, yeah, it's fine. But I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I see that, eh? Yeah,
I was trying to get it back there for a minute.
No, we're talking about like the class giving you like, well, he mentioned the art, but I guess it go a little further than the art. Like the art can be an inspiration. You say like, oh, I want to be this guy, right? I want to be this. It's a big thing. Like you don't have to come whole cloth with everything, But in a sense, it can get you started very fast. But in the other way, are you focusing too much on the role?
The career role, not
the career role, not the personality of your character, right?
Yeah, and those are like overly tropey as far as I'm concerned. To the point where it's kind of disgusting.
Yeah, it's always like what we say, like who is your character, not what is your character, right?
Yeah, like because the D&D party structure of the archer, the warrior, the healer, the mage, like that would never exist in a world ever. Like that's not a thing. You don't see that in military units out through history or now, or like maybe you have somebody with medical training in your little tactical unit, but there's one that's an archer.
Like in the what is it again? Not in the platoon, but in the what is the smallest? I'm not a military guy. The smallest unit.
You have people who have professions, guys.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then
but
you have training within those professions as well.
But they're not balancedly assembled into tactical units and deployed.
No, but you're gonna have like the radio guy, you're gonna have the medic, you're gonna have like the sniper, you're gonna have like the
that's at platoon level.
Yeah.
That's
not but you put the team together and they have special skill sets. So your medic is not going to be the same. They might have some cross training, of course, but your medic is going to be very specialized in saving people's lives. And in fact, the worst
in a role playing game, not reality.
No, but even in reality.
Even in reality.
But that's reality.
In reality, you don't send that guy out in a 4-man or 6-man unit into the
Yeah,
field.
you do.
He's at the platoon. If you get
Like-
wounded, you
Yeah, you
gotta
do.
drag that guy back to get
No.
fixed
You,
up.
you do send the medic with, like in Vietnam at least they did. In
No.
Vietnam you had that. You had
Then
like
you
the
had
guy.
MASH units. That there was a whole show about that.
I never
No.
watched MASH.
Yes, you have the hospital.
Yeah.
That's the mash. That the mash is the hospital, but within units, especially within like specialized units, you have people who are specialized. You have the ordnance guy. He's specialized in blowing stuff up. Yeah, everybody else might know a little bit
That's
about blowing
tropes
stuff
from
out.
movies,
Up.
though.
No, it's not, dudes.
I'm not
I
a
know
military
medics.
guy, so like
I
I think
know medics, actual military medics. And I know
Yes.
people who have multiple classes. So they have like when they started in the military, they started in one class, right?
look,
And it's
yeah.
very rare in the modern military to have multiple, but there are people out there who are multiple. So maybe when they're not being deployed in a certain way, they are literally being the ship's cook, like in the movie. But then when they are being deployed, they are literally that SEAL guy who could like really put a hurt on you. Then you have a medic who normally he's just the medic guy and doing the first aid around the base and stuff, but he has extra training. So then he's spending training time with the SEALs or the Army Rangers or whatever. And then if they go somewhere, he's off with them.
And even look at
Same with
the
the
this
canine.
Max Liao, right? Max Liao is a veteran. He used to be like he was in the Air Force, but he was like combat camera. You know, so he had to be like his job. He would go with the crew. So he had to be combat trained, but he had a specific role to film for some reason. I don't know, to
Right.
take
And I
pictures,
know
shit like that.
people
Yeah. But
who
that's not
switched
my
their
point. My
ratings.
point was that they don't balance out, like, okay, yeah, you have one guy with first aid training,
Yeah,
but
they
he
don't.
isn't a
It's not.
surgeon capable of healing you to full health.
No, it's
You
not.
get
It's not.
patched
It's
up
not
long enough
as.
to go back to the hospital.
You
It's not
might be
as specific
surprised. I know
as.
people who literally have must promote in their military jackets, their records for being a corpsman by the medical staff who got the patient later. But the person who did the medical in the field surgery wasn't a corpsman, but they had previous medical training, and so they saved that soldier's life or that sailor's life. So
Yes.
you have to understand that when we look at classes, we're looking at skill bundles,
Yeah.
and then that's why we have also like when you play something like Advanced D&D, old school, they have like proficiencies where you get some extra little fun stuff because they're assuming that there's more to the person than just their class bundle. All right. And some people have amazing class bundles in real life. I know people who, tech wise, it's crazy what they can do. Chemical wise, the same person. It's crazy what they can do. Biological, like microbiology, it's crazy what they can do. And you would never know it because they're sitting in front of a sonar or something. But their background training and experience is such that, you can even put a weapon in their hand and they're an expert. Where like people are like, that person shouldn't be that good at that because they're a nerd. No, it has to do with their training. And then they end up being the person that say works with the SEALs, even though there's nothing that says they're part of a SEAL team. So you
That's the thing
have
too.
to
Like,
understand that.
if we're to make like a class for those characters, there would be like much more overlap in because they're basically
Yes.
all soldier as well. So there will be much more overlap about what they can do. In D&D, it's very like niche protection and separated.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
oh, the
very
fucking
niche.
wizard cannot wear
And that's
armor,
what the
cannot swing a
proficiencies were
sword.
supposed to
Yeah,
help with. Yeah, that's what they
yeah.
were supposed to help with. Those proficiencies were to help unniche them a little bit and make them more individuals, I think.
But I don't know. Like I said,
Anyway, that's
another.
my take on it for playing
I don't know why we're
AD&D.
talking about that. We're talking about the class. We're talking about the class
Well,
coming as bundle.
we were talking about
Yeah.
the characters, the roles being
Oh yeah. The people focusing too much on the role.
hyper focused, and
Yep.
I was trying to get to the point that you wouldn't have such a heavy division in roles in a party when making up a group like that in the first place. You wouldn't go out and find a person who was such a mage or to the division of a medic. You wouldn't go and get a neurosurgeon to go on the party with you. You get a person who can throw a band-aid on you.
Yeah.
But
No, I think
the
can go
way
further
it's
than Band-Aid.
divided is that it feels like you're getting the top end of that instead of someone who can just keep you alive long enough to get back to town.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I think that's maybe one of the problems with the class bundle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You froze.
Is
You froze
is they started out as
bundle.
generalized classes. Yeah. And then they became very specialized, which in real life that happens.
But only in
But those
first
specialized
world
people
hyper.
tend to be at institutions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but only in
I
first
agree
world
with you.
hyper overeducated militaries that are like
No, I totally agree with
yeah.
you on that one. And that's one of the problems that caused the proliferation of classes in D&D. So instead of people going, gee, I'm going to be a magic user, how do I make my magic user special and unique
Mhm.
and focused, just in general, just for flavor, they then went ahead and go, well, let's just make a whole new class. And that was
I know like
unnecessary.
there's some game that say like that give like adventuring skill or dungeoneering skill like to everybody, because say that you're an adventurer, you're gonna have like a certain level of thing you can do, you know what I mean, like there's like
Right.
trap and stuff like that, whatever, and then you have your trap on top of that. But yeah, some so like this niche protection sometimes they like go overboard, you know, like sneaking, like yeah, probably
Yeah,
everybody
they
should be
do.
able to sneak to some point, right? Because that's something useful, right?
Oh, everybody can
Mm.
sneak at some level, sure.
And
I mean, everybody should be able to try to pick a lock
yeah,
or try to bust down the door.
yeah, well, if you yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like
Why
the
not?
when the it's almost like when the thief class got introduced, because you know, like I would say, like oh, in the first D&D there was no thief because like they say like, well, you're all thief. That's what you're going in
Well,
you're
and look at
grave
the
robber, you're
cleric.
going in dungeon. What?
Look at the cleric.
Yep.
Oh, you can only bludgeon people. You can never like defend yourself with a sharp, pointy object.
Oh, that's a religious
Like
religious
that would
reason.
never happen, right?
Not
I
allowed
mean,
to
and
spill
see,
blood.
like that's probably why paladins came into existence, is because someone was like, well, can't we have a religious person with a sword like Joan of Arc? And you
That's
know,
why I was looking at getting rid of the core attributes and going straight to skills and just having that number. But it's like an idea I'm toying around with.
yeah, I think if you keep if you do classes and you keep them as general skill bundles that are
Mm.
understood as exactly that, as a big general box, right? And then the player chooses their backstory and then hones them a little bit more, that's fine. I think what happens is everybody tries to create these perfect builds,
Yeah.
which the original game wasn't designed for. To be honest, it wasn't.
Well,
And it was designed for you role play your character. So if you want to be the person who likes to play with fire, then make that your magic user's thing. If you want to be the fighter who's more on the barbarian end than the knight end, then make that the thing. But if you want to be on the knight end, that's okay too. But then everybody demanded like specifics when they weren't necessary. When that was really the window dressing, if you will. And that's where things suddenly titles become classes. Like in the old game, there was titles for all the levels, and people didn't understand the whole point of that. That was part of the whole social
Mm-hmm.
structure thing, and
Yeah.
so it's unfortunate because by making all these boxes, they actually limited people more. really, when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's something that I wanted to bring back as well, because like we mentioned earlier, like we say like, okay, if you give like some we're talking about analysis paralysis, and we're talking about like giving class, it's easy way for people to get into stuff. They have a limited set of option, and they can choose and just go with it, and they're ready to go, right? Then I mentioned, oh, maybe that limit too much, or that focus too much on what the character is and not enough on who the character is.
Mhm.
So that's what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
that's another problem too. Yeah, skill doing it by individual skills is the other option, like Justin pointed out, and they're both valid, and so like I see people fight about this all the time. You just got to pick one and then go with it. Um, they both have their pros and their cons, to be quite honest. But even if you do skill based, as the game master or referee, whatever you want to call yourself, you should always keep an open mind that there's some things that the player, based on their culture, should always just get probably as Benny skills, beneficial skills that they would just know. Like
Yeah.
the likelihood that you know how to drive a car in North America is pretty high.
Yep. Well,
So if you want to be the
it's always a
character that
question.
can't drive, then,
Yep.
then that should give you points towards something else.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're going to be
No.
at this big deficiency, you know. So it's that kind of thinking you got to keep in mind. Now, in modern America, how many people can ride a horse? Not as many as the old West.
No.
Yeah.
So you have to like do that balancing and not be too draconic on certain things that have to do with the setting.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
see people get anal over the settings and like no, they have to buy all this stuff. It's like, but then nobody can do anything.
Yeah.
Ryan Applefinger said this is why the Castle in Crusade engine, I think CC, I think that's what he meant, is cool
Yeah.
because you can use other class skill. It's also why Lens is cool. I don't know what Lens is, because your class is what you carry. Oh, Lens. I
Okay.
guess I'll be the same as Knave. I don't
Yeah.
know what Lens is.
That's the same in my most often mentioned game, Morkborg.
Morgborg, yeah.
Yeah, your class is what you're carrying.
Yeah, it's loot based,
Okay.
like equipment based, gear based.
Yeah.
But the Castle and Crusade is like it's a class based game, but it's also like in part aspect based because it says like, well, if you do something that is related to your class,
Mm-hmm.
just add your level. You know what I mean? There's no skill per se.
Well, I was thinking like because I told you the D6 system I'm working on, right? The 1D6 system.
Oh, you told me very little about it.
Very little because I'm still in
Yeah,
the,
early
the
stage.
thinking phases. But so say you had sword fighting, and I'm just generic it for this conversation, and you picked up a sword, you would only be able to do the amount of it you had, but it wouldn't also give you like if you had nothing in bow fighting, right?
Yeah.
Like using a bow, you wouldn't be able to use a bow you looted,
You
right?
would be incredibly disadvantaged with the bow because you
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
to use it between the sword.
But
Absolutely.
at the same time, unless you have an absolute negative in a trait, right? You would start off with at least 1 point, the ability to like hold the thing and use it, but it's gonna be like you're gonna be super shit at
Oh,
it,
yeah.
right?
Mm.
Right. Well, you would at least be able to be like so normally you have the sharp pointy sword.
Yeah, you
Okay.
at least poke something
Okay.
with it.
But you would be able to transfer some of that skill to your sharp pointy stick,
Yeah, well, sharp pointy stick.
basically.
Hello, Ryan.
Not
Welcome.
all of it.
No.
So you want to be great, but
Yeah,
you can still do certain things with a bow stick that are similar to the same moves that you do with a broadsword, for example. And
no.
you're not going to be as good. It's not going to do the same
Well,
damage. And if somebody knows what they're doing with a stick, you're going to lose.
No,
Yeah,
I 100% disagree.
you
If you want to
disagree.
compare if you want to compare weapons, you can compare a spear to a bow staff, but a stick and a sword
Well,
are
a spear
completely
is
different
better.
with the weight
I
But
didn't
balance.
say
there's
staff. I just said bow.
Yeah, you see,
But-
we're just he gave a so like there are some quarterstaff moves that have similarities with broadswords, for example,
Mhm.
Well, you see, that's
but not say with
it's exactly what I
fencing.
do in
That's the
in
problem.
my game WinterDarn. Like you have like this every skill is in a group, and you always add the rank of your group to the skill. So, and as you progress like your skill, it progress the group, right? When you have like multiple skill.
Right.
So if you learn how to use an axe, if you learn how to use a sword, and if you learn how to use a knife, well, you at some point you're just going to learn something about fighting in general. So if you go and use a spear or a stick or a quarterstaff, stuff like that, you might not be training it, might not, but you have enough like fighting experience that you're still going to be benefit from it, right? You got like a base level in basically like melee combat. That's
Some
Yeah, that's what I was
concept.
trying to solve there.
And I see that when I'm training for real in real life.
Yeah, because I think if they're completely
training
separate,
stuff.
if they're
Yeah.
completely separate,
Yeah.
it's not good. If they're completely the same, it's not good either. They need to be like
Mhm.
some kind of like transposition between one and the other, but it cannot be 100%. How you doing,
Yeah.
Ryan? It's first time on my channel.
So,
Welcome.
so
Hello?
people who
Nah.
only punch and kick, they tend to have a big problem when, say, we're doing something with weapons in the martial arts class.
Yeah.
They can't conceptualize what the invisible person is doing, like who they're defending against, that kind of thing. And until you bring somebody in with another stick or something else to like be like, okay, what would be happening is you're doing this because there's something like like if you're pushing your stick out. Yeah,
I think we
this way,
we
you're blocking something coming in that way, and I find that they have trouble conceptualizing that because they're only used to dealing with, you know, or
yeah, and it's also like
and
distance and stuff like that. Yeah. Still, we you say like using group level, it's some serious Canadian socialism in your game. We concluded that the other day that role playing is communism.
Yeah,
Justin
it's
has
on a
a
shirt.
for that. So
Yeah.
group levels and seriously socialism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Role playing
Group
is
level.
socialism or communism.
it's communism.
It's not
Role
even
playing is
socialism.
communism.
It's hard communism.
Yes, hard communism.
Yeah.
That's
How
funny.
you doing? So Ryan,
I'll be right back, guys.
all right,
Yeah.
you have something to say about what we're talking
I'll be
about?
right back.
In the air?
Yeah, we got you.
Well, I know you're like designing a game
Yep.
from like
Aren't
the
you?
purview of like stuff. I'm no. I'm more into like designing settings. I could care less about mechanics. Setting is what matters to me.
Good man.
You're a big OSR guy, like even like
Um,
OSR kind of guy.
Right now, my system of choice is Axe.
Well, it's a good choice.
In the deep.
Yeah.
No.
Adventure Conquer King system. But with what Grandma was saying, with how you have different martial backgrounds, are familiar with different martial weapons, I think it'd be interesting to see a system explore leveling up with a weapon, so you get like a +1 to a weapon you're routinely using over your levels, type of thing, as you gain familiarity with it. Because a broadsword has completely different weight balancing than a rapier or a bow staff or whatever.
The system I'm toying with, the more times you get a success consecutively, the more apt you are to get a level boost within a class limit, not a class limit, like a limit, because I'm doing like a 1 to 15 points per skill ability. So with every 5 being a break for having to like revolutionize your thought in that weapon or generic ability, like so. If you're like a carpenter, right? You'll develop a a further understanding in that
Carpentry.
Yeah. Well, like so say okay, I can make a box.
Yep.
And it'll be a decent box, right? But then I can make like a beautiful box, like a well-made one, and then I can like go on to like the master artisan of like fancy carved inlays and shit like that.
So you have like
Here.
3 step basically. Like it's like
Yeah.
it'd be like a journeyman or apprentice journeyman master, right?
Yeah. Or like when it comes to weaponry, it'd be like, okay, I can fight with this sword. Okay, I can fight with like a better sword or like more artistic. Or the third level will be like god tier. I can be like guts.
Yeah, like I can fight one person with a like 1-on-1 with a sword. I can fight maybe 2-on-1 with a sword. I can find a group, right?
Yeah.
Could be that.
Something like that. I'm
Interesting
still
idea to toss out here.
Huh?
In Gamma World and Metamorphosis Alpha, when you successfully defend and attack so many times mentally, I'm frozen.
No,
No,
you're
you're
back
good.
now. You froze for a minute there.
Okay. All right,
Just a
all right.
second.
When you successfully do this 5 times in a row, you go up 1 point in your strength, if you will, your ability to do these things. Okay. So, like, if you started at 0 level in your ability to do something a certain way, if you had game mechanics that
Okay. You
track,
froze at game
say,
mechanics.
your success rate at doing something, then it's, well, game mechanics that track how successfully the player does something. So, like, every time they roll a 20, there's a little, check. Let's say you're using the 20 for whatever system you're using for the max, the critical awesomeness.
We're using the 20 for your example.
Okay, you get a check, and you get so many checks, then you go from say 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And then that gives you a better ability to do that thing until you max out.
Yep.
That's a thought, because
that's the thought I was
they were talking about improving a basic character attribute
Yep.
to the maximum of 18 in that sample, but you could do it for something else in skills if you didn't want to do it with buying points or experience for a class or something like that. Just a thought of a different way to approach it.
You see, yeah, that's I do something like because that's also like bringing us back to the analysis paralysis. I always want to go back to this topic because I think we go on tangent, but we haven't exhausted the topic yet. I like to go deep on stuff, right? Like because like you say, like it's always a thing. Like when you gain a level, you get those new feature. Maybe you get to choose one feature among a list of 3, whatever. That's fast. That's easy for people to choose. In my system, what I'm doing, I went a different way because it's a classless and levelless game. So you create a character with the life path. You start with some skill, some experience, and some skill, and basically every scene, it's every time that the tempo change. So if you go initiative or if you go out of initiative, you can add 1 experience point to a skill that you use in a significant manner, or a skill that you use. Right? If you're not, like I say, in a significant manner, because if you're not sure, if you say, "Oh, did I use this skill?" Well, then you didn't, right? It doesn't count. Like if you don't remember using it or not, it doesn't count. But so you go into a fight, you fought with your sword, whatever. You can add a point in your sword skill, or an experience point in your sword skill. Or you can add an experience point in your reflex because you roll initiative at the start of the fight. Or you can add a point in your if you run during the fight, you can add a point to your running skill, right? So it's a limited choice. You maybe have like a few skill every time you can add a point that you can choose. But it's based on use, so you don't have like this character build. You want to build your character, well, you have to smith if you want to become a good smith, right? You have to actually do the thing if you want to get good at doing the thing. So that
I
was
agree.
my way.
That makes sense.
that
I
was
agree
my
with
way to try
Rune
to
here.
address.
You need limiting factors. You need limiting factors, like Rune is talking.
Oh yeah, you
The last
need
comment there.
caps.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with the creator here. Yeah, point that way.
Yeah.
That setting is massive in choosing how
Oh yeah.
what kind of skill and how you're the best game mechanics to get the feel for the setting that you really want to bring out. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes by a lot of people. Like sometimes you'll have to change things in a game that you normally play if you're going to change the setting drastically for a specific feel, a specific atmosphere. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. But and that's the whole point of this conversation is trying to figure out like how those mechanic influence, because like we often say, like well, some mechanic is gonna, I think like that's my big thesis, and I know a lot of people like disagree with that. Maybe character, I'd be curious to have your take on that.
On where
Because I say
mechanics and setting intersect, is that the
no,
question?
because my point oftentimes is that the rule system of a game actually influence the tone of a game more than the setting, because you can play two game with a very similar setting
Mm.
but with different rule set, and they're gonna play very differently, because one is gonna feel very heroic, one is gonna feel very like mudcore, like oh it's grimy and you die easily, it's very lethal. So I think that the rule set has more influence on the tone of a game than the setting. What do you?
Yeah. When I was doing a lot with Yoon Soon, which I'm moving away from right now, working on my own stuff. But with 5e, whenever I played in that, the setting played very high fantasy. Or when you went to OSE, the setting was very gritty, like people
Are you
dying all
leaving?
the time.
Yeah,
Or
I gotta go, guys.
Oh,
Bye.
Party on.
thank you for the bring. Bye. Take care.
or when you added like the BroSR like patron player and all that stuff rules in there, it changed to a very like silly slapstick style
Muppet.
kind of game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely see
That
mechanics influencing tone. Whereas like if you look at games like Knave, you're probably going to go for a very mercenary, like treasure drovey sort of style game, because the whole point is to get more treasure to make your character more unique or whatever, because you start out as just a plain Jane. Whereas if you go with like the traditional classic fantasy, you're like, I'm the ranger, I shoot bows, this is what I do. I'm the magic caster. So mechanics do have a point of reinforcing the setting, but I don't think they should supersede the setting.
Where I'm looking at a system that if you want to get good at something, you've got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of like
Yeah.
talking about earlier, that I'd like to see a game where, oh, if I swing a sword for 5 levels, then rather than it being in an attribute or whatever, it should be tracked with that sword or style of sword.
Well,
I'm good at swinging this style of sword type of thing.
I'm
Or if
thinking of
I played
dropping.
chess for 5 levels, then I should be good at chess type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of dropping the arc of levels for the character and moving it to the ability itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
But that's what basically I'm doing. There's no level for character, and experience is tracked per skill basically. So you put like a skill, you put an experience point in the skill that you want to rate.
I think you're what
I don't know
inspired me
much.
to do that.
Sorry.
I don't know much about your guys' systems, but from
Well,
the one that Justin's talking about, I'm worried about crunchiness on the player side of things, because it's like Alex McCree said in one of the recent live streams, the game should be crunchy on the DM side of things and not the player side of things.
This is a problem because I am an advocate against crunch, and that's the big hurdle I'm thinking of right now. Because
my game, like I often say, like the game I'm working on is a bit like I often say, like it's a kind of like a thesis. I'm trying to solve some issue. One of them is about crunchiness. Like I'm trying to figure out, can we have a little more crunchiness if it makes sense, if it's logical, and if it's homogenized and easy to manage. Like my system is definitely a little more crunchy than a lot of system, but I'm trying to make it in a way that it's easy enough to manage because it just makes sense. You just like there's no there's not a lot of subsystem, right? There's like the one system that I have is a bit more. There's a bit more crunch to it. There's a bit of a learning curve, but you learn it once, and then it's the same thing everywhere. So I'm trying, and like I said, like I'm doing it like I'm trying to answer some question in the design of that game. It's very experimental kind of approach to game design. So it might be a failure. I'm not but the link on the description below too of this video, if you were ever curious, you want to go read what I have so far.
There's like 9,000 pages.
Yeah.
So
I'm not done yet.
Devote the rest of your life to it. I'm just joking.
Like I said, it's a thesis. No.
Where I'm still like everybody I've been talking to lately is making a game, so I figured I might as well put a fart into the pot as well.
Yeah, well, it's a fun endeavor. I think it's a good thing to do. Yeah. I wanted to address like the comment from Arun. I didn't get to talk about it, like the concern about farming crits, doing basic tasks like fighting goblins. Like he said, like I'm gonna make 100 attacks on the training dummy, get crits, develop my sword skill. That's a problem I won't have because you gain 1 skill point per basically per scene, per tempo. You can go through to more than 1 tempo in a scene, but that's a little too much in the weed that I care to go in now. So basically you wouldn't, and also even if you are a system where you would get an experience point every time you crit, well, if the player say, I'm just gonna go swing my sword against a dummy 400 times, like don't make them roll. Don't make them roll, and then the problem is solved, right? You just say, okay, you hit the dummy.
What defines a scene in your system? Because it sounds like a scene is like whenever the GM, DM, judge, whatever you want to call it, in that instance, whatever they feel like it, and that's just milestone leveling.
I'm saying a scene just makes it's when the tempo change. So I define 3 tempo. One is a transition tempo, interaction tempo, and action tempo. Action tempo is when you're initiative. Interaction tempo is when you're like in real time, like when you do role playing stuff like that, but you're not in initiative. And transition tempo is like, we travel for 3 weeks on a boat, right? That's a transition between scene and whatever. It's like when you have like time skip. So the interaction tempo is the one that's real time. The action tempo is when like the real life time it takes longer than the in-game time, and transition is the other way around. So basically, if you're in a scene, it's just like basically when you change location, right? You go in, you go into the you bust the door open of a castle, you go into initiative, then the tempo just changed, so you can gain an experience point from before. If you did make a roll, if you did use a skill, then you get the combat, which is going to be done in action tempo. At the end, when we get out of initiative, then the tempo change. You can gain an experience point in the skill that you use during the action tempo. You get what I mean?
I kind of do. So are you designing a game, or are you writing about the process of how the game works? Because if you're designing a game, why not use the language that's already in the hobby, like initiative, role playing, and all those words you already used, rather than reinventing your own?
Because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, but that's like what nerds do, right?
That's what we always do. Because that's also like one thing I do. I think the language that we have for talking about role playing game needs to be evolved. I think we're starting to have some language. Like, exploding dice. We can say that to people. Like some people know what we're going to talk. But even sometimes we say, it's a life path creator system, and people say, like, what's that? Well, we need to start like naming thing. We need to start like labeling.
I might point out, because I've seen a few people facepalm when I do that. I make a point of doing that from time to time because we're broadcasting over YouTube and somebody watching might not. And that fucking annoys me when somebody mentions something and I'm watching a show and I have to pause it and then go look up what that is
Yeah.
because it's an assumed knowledge because
Mhm.
you're not a trained presenter.
Thank you. I agree. I agree with Dice Tales, and
Yeah.
to his extent, Justin. Role playing is already the used lingua franca. Just because some people have co-opted it and are trying to transition it to a different meaning doesn't mean that's not what that word means. It's the same with English language as they're doing in
But how would
other
you?
places.
How would you? What the term would you use? Because we can say like, okay, when you're in initiative, we could say
Okay, so
that.
critical hit. You're using critical hit, right? That
I'm not,
everybody
but
knows what.
yeah,
Well, you were
yeah,
using it in the last couple minutes, right? So
yeah,
if you
no,
use that term, everybody knows what that was. But then if
yeah,
you suddenly decided to call it supreme attack
yeah,
or
no,
whatever,
no,
nobody
that
knows
that
what you're talking about, and you suddenly sound like you're in a video
that
game. And
that I that
I
I
did.
that
I
I totally agree
Yeah.
with you on that. On that, totally agree on agree with you on that point. Like at some point, like I went to, like my game is a dice pool game. I don't like the term success that you look for
mm,
when you look for success in dice pool, because like oh, I think there's confusion there. You can get like, oh, you gain a success but you're not successful because you need the tree, right? It's kind of like a weird.
mm, okay,
Uh,
yeah, that makes
but
sense.
I do use the term success just because like people, it's easy. Like like that's a big gripe I have with the Burning Wheel, right?
I think
They
the board game Risk uses wins in that. So like you have the dice that you
Yeah,
compare, and it's like
but
this one
even
win,
then,
this one lost type
you
of
can
stuff.
get a win and not win, right? And because you need to have
Mm.
more win than the other one. It's kind of like a
But defender does win tie.
yeah. But there's like there's something that
I'm sorry, I'm a
I
bit
think
of
the
a
term could have been better chosen, but now there's a term that has been established for that, so I'm gonna use it, right? I'm just saying, it's not ideal, but sometimes like it's better to have a standard, and like something like I was saying in Burning Wheel, they use like you have to beat an obstacle, right? And I always hated that they don't say like difficulty level or target number. Those are terms that people know and use.
in
That's your
in
target
Morkborg.
number. Yeah.
Well,
In Morkborg, it's
that's
a
the entire
challenge.
story of the
One
English
at a time,
language.
guys.
Okay, you go.
Just to your last point, where you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is a term that's not the best term to use." That's the entire like
Yeah.
history of the English language. Like it's three different Romance languages wearing a trench coat stacked on top of each other. It doesn't make
Plus
sense, but
some
that's what it
Germanic
is.
one.
Which is the best language?
It's like actually two Germanic language wrap into a fucking Romance trench coat.
Why couldn't we just be speaking German?
So you wanted to talk about Morgborg again,
Oh,
Justin?
well,
That's
you
gonna be like a
mentioned
fucking drinking game.
passes in Morkborg. It's 12, and unless the thing you're fighting specifically says it's a different number, you just got to reach 12 to succeed.
How did they
Uh,
call it? What did they call it? Did they call it the target number? Did they call it like
they call it the challenge. I think the challenge number or target number, one or the
challenge
other.
rating?
Yeah, it's like they call it a challenge
it's not
system or something.
great, but
Yeah, it's nothing's ever going to be perfect, but
but that's the thing, like I say, go with target number, go with difficulty level.
yeah,
People understand that, right? Just like
yeah.
yeah. Uh, but
But
something
it's
like I
easy to
say,
understand. That's the most important thing. It's easy to understand when
yeah,
presented with the text block.
yeah. But like I said, for what I use when I talk about tempo, right? How would you call it when you're real time but not in initiative, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have a term for that I'm aware of. People just say that, well, when you're in, like we just have to describe it. So I just put a label on it. I Maybe somebody else did that before. I'm not aware of it, so it doesn't count. So I just say, well, that's interaction tempo. You're in interaction tempo. We play real time. I define it once. When I say, well, in interaction tempo, you can do this. Well, then when you're not in initiative, but you're not also like in skipping time, like in doing time jump.
Yeah.
And
You're
just
at the
because I
mid.
have just because I define like those 3 different tempo in role playing game, I think tempo is a good word. It's not a word that's like it's
Yeah.
a word that people understand. It's not a word that no, it's like musical.
Yeah. No. Tempo is like the pace you're moving at, right?
What
The what?
what is
The pace you're moving at.
Yeah, the
It's
pace. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
what is that one game? I think it was this past summer that Legacy Game Mastering was really excited about, and it was all about music and RPGs like interacting because that may have some terms that in there, and I think it's French, so it may have some terms that help you with that.
Music that interacting.
Yeah, I think you'd have to ask Legacy Game
I don't
Mastering
know.
about it. He was
I know that.
talking on a stream with TBE about it, like in July, I believe.
I will
don't
be
know.
right back.
I know that. I know that the Cowboy Bebop game use a lot of like musical term, which because it's Cowboy Bebop, and then I think your stat or like actually like music style like jazz and swing and stuff like that. Bebop. That's an Italian game though, but I don't know. I don't know much about outside of that. Like I'm a big fan of Cowboy Bebop, but I didn't back that game because I wasn't too impressed by the previous product from that studio. But yeah, yeah. Like I still say I call it a real time initiative.
I
But then
like
you have
that.
to then you have to say like, well, real time initiative, and then what you say like for when you're in initiative, like when you're not in real time, you're like slower than real time. So you're not have to say like real time initiative, slower than real time initiative, and then not in initiative. Like I think the language like I wanted to define like precise term that I can just refer to in a sentence. Just say in action tempo, and then I can move on, right? And in transition tempo, and I can move on. You can just like that's what I was trying to do. It might be
Dice Tale says initiative cubed.
initiative tree.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
initiative cubed. That's you put the little 3 in math and
Yeah.
it's cubed.
Type initiative for non-real type initiative. Exactly. But that's a term I came up with. I would love those terms to get traction, so people like so we can always like I think because they're not specific to the specific game I'm designing with. So I think it could be useful in every game. Like it's just action. Now we need now every fucking beat, every second matter. We need to track a little closer. It's the action time, right? I could have sent that action time, interaction time, or transition time. I guess maybe time would have been easier than tempo. Maybe tempo make it like needlessly convoluted. But I don't know. I like it. I'm sticking with it so far. Maybe I'll change it later on. That's the gist of design. Yeah. What else were we talking about? You got anything else?
You were
For
going to ask Justin about Morkborg, I believe.
Nah, you always talk about Morkborg. What's a mechanic you like in a mechanic that's used in role playing game that you see used, maybe not enough that you like? So, oh, man, this really like fucking changed the game. This is really cool.
There was a game not too long ago that I was interested. I gotta find it, but I really like. I'm kind of annoyed with how many what is it RPGs use D20s and stuff. Like D6 is the most accessible die. Everybody has a D6, so like
Yeah.
I'd love to see more D6 games.
Well, it's not like the other dice are like hard to get nowadays either.
No, it's not like they're hard to get, but when you're like trying to get normies to play with you, they have to go buy dice, or you have to buy more dice for them. And it's like I'm really starting to appreciate the like crunch and depth that Axe has. I'd like to have a game that fits in my pocket, like pamphlet size, that I take to Cracker Barrel or whatever and pull out of my
Mhm.
pocket, and I can suddenly play at Cracker Barrel type of thing. I thought that would be kind of cool.
Well, Justin would be with you on that, I guess.
Oh, Easy D6. That's what it was.
Mhm.
Found it.
Easy D6.
Yeah,
What would I
well,
be?
What?
What would
Oh,
I be?
a game that that just can fit in your pocket, like that is that is easy to, like, light, I guess, easy to get along and use only D6s.
You mean mini D6?
Well, not that's what he's talking about now, but like easy
Yeah.
D6. He meant not mini D6, easy D6, different one.
Easy
Okay.
D6 is the system I was thinking of that
Yeah.
recently came out that uses D6s only.
Yeah, that's from DM Scotty from
Yeah.
channel. What is fucking channel again?
I think his channel is DM Scotty.
DM Scotty? I thought you had something craft again.
No, that's Professor Dungeon Craft that was talking
Yeah.
about his book.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, it's got the green cover.
Mhm.
It's a variant on the mini D6 rules.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
I don't
it's,
think.
it's uses the same engine.
Oh, I
I'd
thought it was at a different engine.
No,
I'd love to see like a version of BX that just uses D6.
Mhm.
Well, you could always like replace the D20 by 3D6, right? For shooting those things.
Yeah, but it only gives you 18.
So what? You don't need the other two. I still was saying earlier, like game mechanics that has grown on me is like our exploding dice.
Yeah, those are neat.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'd play a game with them, but like I wouldn't design a game with them unless I had more experience with them.
I like the mechanic of exploding dice. I think they can be very exciting and they can bring this you always have a chance of succeeding or killing somebody in one blow and stuff like that. You never know what's gonna happen, right? You can do those amazing roll when you reroll like a few times, right? But I don't think they're a right fit. Like they weren't a good fit for the game I'm working on now.
You were trying to put them in there.
I think I thought about it. No,
Mhm.
I took it away like pretty soon because it just doesn't work, because
Mhm.
it's like I think the big problem I had is like my game is not the fastest. You need to have like a base mechanic that is quite fast if you want to have
Yeah.
the exploding dice, because exploding dice are gonna add some time to the experience, right?
Mhm.
Because now making a roll can take some time. I guess that's a big drawback of it.
Yeah.
But
Where
they can bring a lot of excitement and they can bring this lethality and they can bring this, you never know what's going to happen. It's always worth rolling because who knows.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
this game called what is it called, Open Legend.
Open Legend?
Yeah, that is a D20 game, but you also always roll, I think, another die. So you can roll a D20 plus a D4, D20 plus a D6, whatever, and the dice always explode. So
Yeah. There's one thing. There's one thing I would say. Um. Yeah. Go.
go ahead.
Just to answer Bleeker's question, exploding dice is basically
Oh yeah.
where whatever the system's like max number of dice. If you want to go under, it'd be 1. If you want to go over, it'd be 6. If you roll a 6, then that means you get to roll another d6, and if you
Yeah,
roll another 6, then you keep rolling, and then
yeah.
the damage stacks, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Usually it's with the, because you add the dice. So usually it's with the, when you roll the maximum on the dice, you can roll an extra dice and add it. Like, so if your system is a D6, you roll a 6, well, you add another die, and then you roll a 6 again, you add another die. So you never need, there's no basically like upper limit to what you can roll, because you can always add a new dice to.
You can put into the rules a hard cap on the number of times you can do it, but
Yeah, but that's a bad mechanic. That's a bad design, I guess. If you want to go exploding dice, like just go like all in, right?
well, it's
Because
to prevent a player sitting there and getting 36s in a row.
yeah, but how often it's gonna happen, right? I think
Yeah.
it's bad design because first it's going to be very rare that you roll more than 3 or 4 times, right? 4 times is pretty amazing already.
Yeah.
But if it happens, it is extraordinary and it's very exciting and it's memorable in a way, right? So putting like imagine how unsatisfying it is. Say like, oh, you can your dice can explode 3 times, and then you roll a 6, and then oh, I can roll again, roll a 6, oh, I can roll again, another 6, and then like, well, I could, but no, the rules say no, right? That's
Yeah.
you feel like you're being cock blocked, right? You feel like
Yeah.
The thing I find cool about the exploding die mechanic is it taps into the cinematic fantasy, which a lot of people are as fantasy movies are becoming more and more popular. You got Conan lobbing someone's head off with one swing, or you got like the Lord of the Rings, all the ghosts rushing onto the shore. It's like that would be that moment where the dice are exploding constantly. Like you wouldn't normally just be able to swing a sword and lob someone's head off; they'd block you or whatever. Type of thing.
We've never been in a sword fight, bro.
I have. For high school, my PE, I took fencing for 2 years.
oh, Bleaker asks,
Yeah.
so it comes on multiple dice, so 76 fireball, and 3 6s get to roll another 3d6. Often, yes, usually yes. But oftentimes, like oftentimes the system with exploding dice won't have you roll that many die.
Mhm.
But basically, yes, you would. And if those 3d6 come 6 again, you can roll them again. So yeah, it can be very devastating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Arun is saying something interesting there. Exploding dice are cool. Everyone likes them. That's probably why D20 critical table are so popular. It's like the D20 version of exploding dice. What do you think? Do you think that the critical table fill a similar role than the exploding dice?
Yeah, it can. Like the only critical table I'm going to have is a negative one. But I'm
I
a
don't
coach and
think it
master,
can.
so
I don't think it can because you look at like Axe's mortal wounds table, and you got, depending on the damage type, you could have a scarred face or you could have your nose cut off type of thing. Or with a D6 thing, it's like, oh, they're just dead type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the table can add more granularity. What I don't like about table is like, unless you have it like always ND, like in the player aid or stuff like that, like I don't want to refer to the book what I'm playing, right? So
Yeah.
if you have like then you need like a kind of a game master screen or some kind of an handout or stuff like that, which I'm not like, because you're gonna have one for fighting, but then like maybe you're gonna have one for like a melee combat and one for range combat, and at some point like you start like flipping through paper and stuff like that. That's something I personally don't like. But I see why people might like them.
So the Bro SR has a lot of things that I don't agree with them on, but the RTFM, read the freaking manual and raw type of stuff, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And one thing when I was playing that style of game is if you didn't know a rule, you stop the game right there and you look for it. And that was awesome in my opinion, because you didn't cheat the player out of what they rightfully deserved, because they were playing the game how it's intended. You just needed to clarify what would happen as a result of their actions. Whereas if you just hand waved it with a rule 0 or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, we're just playing make believe. Why are we even buying the books or printing out character sheets when we can just make everything up as we go? So the stopping to look at the rule and then go by what the rule is, it keeps everyone accountable. And that's what I like about it.
But the Bro SR have a very different, like they're very, their emphasis the game aspect much more than I do. For like I'm much more like a narrative player myself, right? I'm here like, what I want is I want us to have like, and like I'm not a competitive GM. I hate competitive GMing. Like we're just there like I'm gonna bring opposition to your character and stuff like that and challenge the character. But the goal, we work together to make a cool story. Like we're telling the story of those protagonists, right? We wanted to make it interesting, and overcoming challenge is part of what making it interesting. So we all work together on a similar goal, and I'm there like for having an interesting narrative to answer questions, stuff like that. I'm not so worried about the game aspect that much, but I do like the game aspect is still important because it is still a game, and we still have to have some randomness and like that. We just don't make up stuff as we go. Like we abide by the dice roll, but I like a system that is light enough that what I was saying. I want a system that is light enough that we don't have to refer to the rules right all the time. That
If you haven't checked out Knave, I seriously think you should check out Knave because I
like
already
the second edition.
Yep. Yeah. It does the classless thing you were already talking about. You only got to memorize like 3 or 4 mechanics, and the game can run smoothly without even having to look at the book. It's really good for the rules light department.
Yeah. Also, I'm a big like I leave a lot on the player, like to kind of describe what's happening. Like like injury and stuff like that. I do have a wound system and stuff like that, but like it's kind of like generic, and the player can describe what. They still have consequences like that are in the rule, but I don't want those stable, like, it doesn't matter if you got your nose chopped off that much, or if you got like a big nash on your arm, stuff like that, like a big scar, like not in the moment at least. Then we can.
Well, those things can have an impact, especially if you're going for a more narrative-driven style game. Like, look at Zuko. Everybody knew Zuko was not a guy to be messed with because, one, his attitude was an annoying brat, stuck-up punk, but also he had this huge scar on his face, meaning he's been through some crap and survived. So people either feared him or didn't want to associate with him, type of thing. So those can have a narrative impact, but they won't necessarily have a mechanical impact.
But like I'm saying, like, I'm okay with letting the player choose, right? Choose from like maybe like I got a list of trade, right? Oh, you have to pick one of those. So basically you kind of like making like, oh, okay, this is what happened. Like my character got a severe injury that's gonna leave a mark. What is it like? And then you choose based on the type of, like, you just like make it up. You don't make it up, but you can choose from a list and stuff like that. But you don't have to do it like roll it on a chart during the combat. It can be done like afterward, so we keep the flow going. But
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So
the chart. Anything else to add on the?
Well, I don't know if you covered this while I was away, or if I missed it. No, because you're talking about Easy D6 when I was away. But yeah, charts. Unless you got one or two that's like regularly interacted with, charts should be interacted with outside of main gameplay, right? Like, so I'm at the shop, I'm looking for this, or there's a treasure chart or something the game master will interact with, or during character creation.
Between
those are between sessions. Those are times you want to be interacting with the mainstay of charts in the books. I like having a lot of charts, but they're not things you should be referencing during the game.
That's something I would say. Like, you can use chart during transition tempo.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, we're on a boat for 3 weeks. All right, then we can do some chart there, right?
Yeah, and that should be the mainstay for 90% of the rules in your book. There's stuff you interact with outside of questing, combat, and I don't know, puzzle, or that kind of stuff. They're not stuff you need to know more than a quick reference to.
Yeah. Crispy say, I found the excessive use of chart in Weird Frontier to slow the game too much for my liking. I had Weird Frontier use the same system, a similar system to DCC, And that was a big problem I had with DCC. You know, like it's cool, like the random magic effect and stuff like that. In theory, in play, I find it slow the game too much. Slow down the game too much.
That's like back to Morkborg. The magic spells are all on a reference chart. It's the one I'm looking into the most right now.
Have you looked
but-
up Pirate Borg?
I haven't bought a copy of it yet.
Okay, I'm definitely interested to see what the naval combat is like with that system.
That would be interesting to see because like ship combat and stuff like that, I always like found hard to do.
Ship combat is kind of what sold me on Axe, because I was gonna go with AD&D and I was trying to merge Pirate Borg's ship combat into AD&D, and then Alex was talking about how he did trireme style ship combat in Axe. I'm like, I'm sold. I'm done. Let's do it.
The problem I have often with ship combat is like, how do you keep each individual player still be able to make choice and to make action, not being like stuck in a role that they all get round after round, they're gonna do the same thing, right? How do you give them choice that they can always like make something that is meaningful every round, that they have choice to, you know? That's always like a big challenge, in my opinion. Nothing on that.
Sorry, I spaced out.
Yeah, sorry. All right. The other one I'll talk about is resource management. We often see resource management for wizard in the D&D type game, right? You have to manage your spell and stuff like that. In more modern games, sometimes you have class feature that you can use once per encounter or daily, or if you go on 4th edition. Or once per long rest, whatever. Sometimes you have like this kind of like resource management. How do you feel about this type of mechanic? Do you think it's a good one or a
once daily? In moderation, maybe.
In moderation?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This like when I played D&D, it wasn't a mechanic I had to deal with that often, so I would need to be refreshed on its annoyances.
Well, because like dice still say like a mana point for magic, spell slot double because like some people like there's a thing like I find because like it always come back for me. It always come back to choices, right? I think in role playing game you have to be able to make choice. You have to be able to make meaningful choice. There's choice in narration. There's choice in what you do. There's choice who your character is. But I think it's also important to have like mechanical choice. And the resource management is one way to make those choices. Do I want like if you have like spell slot or whatever, and you can only cast this one spell, like do I use it now or do you wait for later and stuff like that? So it does bring, it might not be the right way to do it for spell, because the other option sometimes like you can do like roll for your spell. You can cast the spell how often you want, but you have to roll for it, or you have to
roll. And you might have like, okay, you can cast it, but the roll means how many turns between now and the next time you can cast it. You know,
dice still. You want to elaborate on that?
I had to jump in on this one. Spell slots, mana use. What in the world has that got to do with magic? If you're going to have magic in your game, it's got to be mysterious. It's got to be strange. It's got to be arcane.
Yeah.
So it's not something that happens on a schedule. It's not something that even has necessarily anything to do with the character casting the spell.
So you would
it's
say
more
like
about the source of the power.
Unpredictable, almost.
Bingo.
Roll to cast.
Something like a roll to cast
methodology, or you could even like use one of the other game mechanics like countdown dice.
Yeah, well,
You
yeah,
know?
I want to bring back to that later. Like I saw you mentioned that. Like I
Right.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, but like for spell casting, you could use it. All right, you're a D12 magic user. You roll, you cast a spell. I don't know, just pulling it out of my posterior here. Subtract the number of points the spell costs. Roll that. If you exceed that, you're great. If it doesn't, then you drop to a D10 for your spell casting, or at that point you roll and get a randomly new assigned die. I mean, you just need something that mixes this up, that makes it magical. For all the other stuff we're doing in role-playing games, we're modeling to some degree in a simulationist manner real life things: combat with swords, combat with weapons, falling off a cliff, getting poisoned. This is all stuff real people do. You hit magic, there's no analog for that. And so if you've got that, chemistry is deterministic, it's repeatable, it's knowable.
Well, when you do what you're doing.
Yeah, when you know what you're doing. When you don't, it's alchemy and.
Agreed. Bingo. See, you just said Justin just nailed it. It's chemistry until it becomes alchemy.
Yeah.
Because it's unknowable and unpredictable, and it makes no sense, and it's irrational. And for magic, if you want atmosphere, you got to bring that in. Yeah, magic is not David Copperfield doing a trick. We all know it's a manipulation.
And David Copperfield doing a trick would be a skill roll for sure.
Prestidigitation. It could be a non-magical skill in the game, and one that a magic user probably would want to have just for reputation.
To fill in the gap between the time you're capable of doing something. Yes, Ryan.
Yes, Ryan.
You guys can finish your thought. I just want to respond to Dice.
No. That's why we're saying yes.
Yeah. So I both agree and disagree with you, Dice. It depends on setting. Because if you are in a setting that has a hard magic system like Harry Potter, where everything has been studied for thousands of years, and you look at this book and this is what you do, then yeah, it makes sense. But if you go to a soft magic setting like Conan, where I throw some cinnamon and some nutmeg in a bowl and suddenly there's a frog in front of me, it shouldn't be repeatable. So it's a sliding scale dependent on the setting.
And I prefer soft.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. But the Harry Potter kind of magic, it's like, and this is a question of style. It's like, it's not magic. It's formulaic.
Yeah, I agree. It's like magic. It's like magic becoming science in a way. Like it's magic becoming technology, or becoming like I like, and I agree with Ryan there. Like it depends on the setting. Some settings do propose this type of magic, and in that sense, like yes, maybe like spell slot or whatever, or something that is reliable makes sense. But that's not my favorite way of doing magic. I'm also like not the magic guy. I dislike magic, and that's part of the reason why I dislike magic in the end of the PCs. I think like magic should be in the end of NPCs or the bad guys, stuff like that. Right? Also because magic is evil. But
what I would say is, like, in the system I'm toying with, the further along you go down that path per thing, the more reliable it would become.
Well, yeah, you could get better at it, right? And have like a better dice roll or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or
the more formulaic and
you can go down that road, but I would suggest if you're going to do it, and again, to respond to you, the curator. Have I got your handle right?
Yeah.
The Harry Potter kind of magic, it becomes like psionic. It's just another mechanism to project force. That's
actually a really good point.
And Justin, to your point, I agree with you. Because as a game mechanic, players want to be able to get better at magic as magic users. So yeah, you want to allow that. You want to make it maybe a little more reliable, but perhaps you do that with some kind of a cost. Now, the standard thing that you see for that is, like DCC does their thing with corruption, and that's kind of become a trope. And that presupposes that magic takes that kind of a toll on you. I like better, like, I don't know if you ever read the Elric of Melnibone, if I'm pronouncing that right. Those stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dark elf emo guy.
Yes, but when he uses magic, it's like, holy bleep, get out of the road. This is destructive as all get out. And it takes a toll on him.
I like
modeling that in the game. But modeling that in the game would be tough, but I think it would be a worthwhile goal.
Taking a toll on him, that would be like that would be in a way like a form of resource management. Like it wouldn't be like spell slot, it wouldn't be like spell point, it'd be like life point or whatever. It could be that as well. Because when we go to game aspect, especially with magic, there still need to be a choice involved for the player, right? And we can go like resource management. That's one way to do it. Like magic spell point, right? Life point, like that is one. The other way we can go with magic that can be interesting is with the push your luck that we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? Maybe did we talk about it earlier? We didn't talk about it yet. I want to talk about it. But we didn't talk about
Bear
it
is doing something like that where
I am as well.
Yeah, the further you push your magic, the more it pulls off of your life instead of your reserves or whatever.
Yeah, because you could try to have a bigger effect, but then maybe the challenge rating is going to be higher, and then if you fail, then there's a consequence, the dire consequence or whatever, right? So you want to cast this big spell, there's always need to be this choice there.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but I would argue even more so that I guess it falls under resource management, but the cost to it should be unpredictable as well. Maybe in terms not just of magnitude, but of type. It's like, well, you cast this spell and it succeeds, so now your stability or sanity is eroded. You cast this spell and since you've already lost sanity, it's not affecting that, but now your spirit or your whatever you're using, your attribute as a magic user is reduced or maybe even enhanced if you successfully cast it.
Yeah.
Just something to mix it up. Yeah.
Because
and the DCC mechanic, which I don't like, where you use a chart for every single spell, because to Crispy's point, it's not a good game mechanic. But the one good thing that comes from that I love, and I think it's in the book, they say it used to be everyone would huddle around the magic user to protect him. You play DCC and he starts casting a spell and everyone's like, run, get away.
I could see using a chart if you're trying to learn a new spell or cast something unique. But once you've got that new knowledge, it should be like you don't have to reference it.
Because if I remember correctly, like in DCC, it's almost like every spell got its own chart, right? So it's not like
that's not a mechanic I like.
No, exactly. So you can have give like one generic chart to the caster and say like, well, then there you go, roll on that if you fail. No, because like now you always have to go back to the book, right?
Well,
it's very unwieldy.
So I'm gonna go back to my trope of Morkborg. When you pick up a magic scroll, they're divided into good and bad, and there's 10 spells for each of them, and you don't know what it is until you've cast it the first time, and then you roll on that chart, and then depending on if it resets or not, it's that until. Like you can use it once a day or twice a day, depending on what your magic ability is. But you don't lose it unless you specifically lose it, right? Because you can roll for it to have negative consequences as part of the casting of it. But once it's established, that's what it is. Right? So you roll to figure out what the spell is, and then that's what you write down in your sheet. But that's only because they're random, like random selections. You don't learn them; you find them.
You might be onto a really fun mechanic there.
Yeah.
How about a spell that every time you cast it, when you cast it, depending on the outcome, it may morph into a different spell, regardless of a success or failure. Like every time you cast it.
You could do that, I guess, if you wanted to. I think one of the consequences for failure, because I haven't used magic in that game yet, just because I didn't buy one when I created my character, and I haven't found one yet. But I think one of the consequences for failure is the thing gets wiped or whatever. You have to roll again. So I have to look at the chart.
Yeah, I like outside of magic, because I'm gonna go bring back to that, but I need to really, like, resource management is something that it is quite present in what you got there, Ryan.
The whole resource management thing. I'll let you finish your thought though.
I'm gonna go along. You want to say something?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Ryan, when you get bored, interrupt him.
You were talking about magic. I think it was Dice Tales who was talking about how magic is strange and esoteric, and if it costs a resource, it shouldn't be like a mundane resource or something. It should be like blood or sanity or whatever. This
Roughly
system
speaking,
is
yeah.
kind of woke, so I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't know it was woke when I backed it, but it arrived in the mail, so I read it, right? They use stress points. So like if you draw your sword or you attack somebody, you get stress, right? And if your stress builds up, then your character can panic and you roll a chart to see what happens to your character. Well, every time you cast a spell, you gain stress. And one of the things that can happen when you panic is you just become an NPC. Like, that's it. Your character is driven insane and can't be properly played anymore, type of thing. So it's just
go
stuff
back
like
to
that,
the
like
farm.
bringing in curses or miscasts. All that stuff is, I think, works towards not only the resource development track of magic, but it also works towards the esoteric side of things that Dice Tales is talking about.
Yeah, that might be a
That's
really
like-
good middle ground because it does handle the resource aspect question real well.
Can you
It's,
drop
yeah.
the name of that game into the chat?
Yeah, it's Cloud Empress. It's based off Mothership, if that's important to anyone.
Yeah. I would argue, though, drawing a sword to kill something probably reduces stress in many circumstances.
Well,
It can. It depends on.
I told you
Some of the places I've worked.
Yeah. But it reminds me of the. That's funny because like I talk a lot about like torch, not a lot. I talk some about Torchbearer, right? I think Torchbearer got a mechanic of resource management that's very interesting. Every time you make a roll, you have to mark a condition, and the first condition, like tired, hungry, thirsty. Then it's sick, injured, and I think angry is one, and death. Anyway, I don't remember the exact list of condition, but every time you make a roll, you have to mark up a condition. So the first one is not a big deal, you're just like, oh, okay, now I'm thirsty, I just need to drink something, whatever. It's easy to solve. So the point of the game is that you try to figure out a way to do stuff. It's a very like grindy game. It's very like a mod core game. You're not playing somebody heroic at all. You're playing like somebody that's trying to loot some dungeon, whatever. So you try to do stuff that don't require you to roll. That's a way of resource management I find is interesting. But it's interesting for that game. It wouldn't work well in many other games, but for that one, I think it works. And what I was about to say is like what I do in WinterDarn. I got like a big part of WinterDarn that's very central mechanic is the spirit mechanic, which I often say is the mix between stamina and morale, right? And that's part of the resource management as well. Because it's dice pool system game, you can spend spirit point to buy more dice for your roll. It's like you're trying to put in a little more effort in what you're trying to do, so you're gonna tire yourself out. But you also have stuff that can happen to you that's gonna make you lose spirit point, and you can never roll more dice than the current number of spirit point you have. So At first, you can spend some spirit point, doesn't really matter. You exert yourself a bit, but at some point, it's gonna start affecting you, and then you're gonna get into the death spiral in a way. There's a delay, so it's not a real death spiral, but so that's a way I have to do like this resource management that is for every character. You have to manage your energy level. Like, do I want to try that hard at doing that, or do I want to just like try casually and not exert myself? And I think that's again bring back to choices that you have to make. You have something to say, Justin?
I prefer setbacks over death spirals. I was just
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I think that
oh, you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the death spiral mechanic, if for especially what Mr. Max is modeling on, that's pretty valid. As you become fatigued, as you have exerted yourself, your strength is sapped, and that affects your willpower, and that affects your ability. I mean, that's one of the things from that we read about in ancient warfare.
Yeah.
The Romans had a mechanism for replacing the front line in combat. And that was exactly the reason why. 5 or 10 minutes of fighting for your life, and your average person is drained.
Yeah, well, that's why I said step packs over death spirals, because most times once players get into death spirals, they can't find a way out of them.
Well, that's why I think like that I'm for that spiral, but I think the important part is that they're delayed. It cannot be like you have to be like before you get into the spiral, there need to be like some time that goes for it.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point when you start getting into the spiral, it's time to say, okay, or just before you get like, okay, now if I lose more spirit, I'm gonna get in trouble. So now it's time. Do we surrender? Do we try to run away? You have this last ditch effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say like, oh, okay, my spirit is getting pretty low. I'm gonna spend the remaining point I have to fucking run to route.
Flee.
Well, it's a valid approach.
Yeah.
Or surrender or something like that.
That's when you regret having me in the party, because I'll say, fuck it, let's just die.
The samurai approach to dealing with fatigue.
I've already got another character written up. I'm okay.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I have to check out here. I did want to weigh in on the magic. Thanks very much for listening to my ranting, and I think there's a lot of good ideas here.
Yeah, I'm with Tails as well. I'm gonna bounce out. I couldn't post for some reason in the chat log, so I put it in the private chat if you want to share it. But I guess it's free on drive-through.
Okay, I saw that you post a link. The last one there.
To post a link in general chat, you have to be
you have to
the
be
host
admin.
or admin.
Yeah,
can you
makes sense.
Post? Yeah, I shared it. The Cloud of the Empress rulebook. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for dropping by, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's good seeing you.
Yeah.
See you, man.
Party on, man.
Okay. And to continue on the resource management thing, like and bring back a bit on the topic of magic, because that's what we're talking about. Well, we're talking about resource management, then it devolved into magic because of the spell slot. I actually do a few type of magic in my game, which I didn't write the magic system yet. I still have to play with it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was telling that bear the other day, because of what he was talking, I said, you know what, I do something actually similar to your spellbinder and sorcerer and stuff like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to watch bear more often.
I was on that stream, bro.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the people in the audience.
Oh.
But it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to explain what I'm doing. Like
I thought you were actually like deliberately talking to me on that.
No, I'm talking to people in the audience.
Yeah.
Like I have wizard, which have to prepare their spell. It's not spell slot per se, but they basically have to write scroll, right? So if they cannot just like spontaneously cast stuff, because they use like those big formula. They're the one that use like magic as science. So it's very elaborate and stuff like that. Those word of power, and they have to imbue the scroll, and the scroll is going to be consumed upon casting, whatever. So they have to write those scrolls. So there's a resource management there as well. They need to plan ahead what they want to cast, and as they cast it, the scroll get consumed. There's also a check involved, a roll involved, to see actually did they write the spell correctly, or did they make a mistake in transcription and stuff like that. And it's usually like a safer way to do magic, but there's the drawback that you have to prepare in advance, right? Then I have the elementalist, which can cast spontaneously, but they have to spend their spirit point, so it exhausts themselves. They use their own energy. So that's a different type of resource management, and they also have to roll everything. Everything you need to roll. What? Well, you casting I don't know. And
You said you needed to watch
you were looking
Barrymore
for the
stuff
stream.
with the link to his.
Yeah. Well, he was there earlier too. So, and then I have the sorcerer with need to sacrifice kill thing to get, like, they're basically like magic point,
Yeah.
but they gain magic point by killing stuff, like sacrificing life.
And that they put it in some sort of
Some pool. Yeah.
Some container, but not a phylactery.
Not a phylactery. No, because that's insensitive. Then they have then I have like the cleric one, the mystic that need to pray to their god to have favor, and then that depend on like if they embody the virtue that the god like and the skill that the god like, they're gonna get more. And then I have like the shaman that need to capture a spirit into object. So now there's a resource management that they can lose actually
fetish.
like a fetish. Exactly, they can lose their fetish, and then they don't have access to this
Power.
And then I have one that is that also do prep, but they do like the potion and stuff like that, and they do like the magic item. You know, if you want to do a flying broom, that's gonna be the one. And all they have like uses, so it's not like always on. Like so, different type of magic like that. They all have their own type of resource management. That
So I
draw
can
from
make
the
my
different resource.
I can make my magical nuclear grenade.
Yeah, yes, you could. I guess you could. It'd be hard, but and there's a chance that it would like blow up in your face, but you could.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Because it's all about like because it's always what I bring about, like, you know, it's like about making choice, and there's a risk involved, and now you have a double risk as well, because you can spend, like, if you have to make a check to do the magic, because everything's a skill check, and you can spend spirit point to get bonus into the skill check, and then you have to maybe spend spirit point to cast the effect. So, but this is like the talk about like resource management now we're doing.
Yeah, but once again, a lot of that could be done in the off-screen sort of like preparative kind of thing, unless you wanted to play. Like if I was playing, like, what was the type you said that had to sacrifice people?
Sorcerer.
It's the one I
Yeah.
thought you said, but make sure. So if I'm playing a sorcerer and the rest of the party are like my henchmen, because I don't see it done, but you could play a magic user front party. I've never seen it done, but it could be done and probably should be done more often. You could play like a scenario, like a session where you're literally just going out to raid a village, sacrifice people. So you're going in, you're capturing a bunch of people, and then like you end the session with, and now we start sacrificing them, and then you roll up how many people you captured and how many were successfully turned into magical essence or whatever.
Well, also like when if you're in the fight and you kill somebody, then you can like offer their life to the dark god and stuff like that, and you get like the
you would do it more of like a rapid kind of conversion thing. Like if I killed you with a dagger, you're now
yeah. You
bound.
can just you just like capture the life point like because
Yeah.
if you want to do like a sacrifice the whole village, like that, is that something you want to do off screen, or is that something that need to be role played? Are people gonna try to resist?
You could do that as a session. You could do that like every 40 sessions or something like that. That's enough magic to last you a good
good while.
Like
That's
good
not
while.
you could that's not like the intended use. The intended use like you find something to kill, and you can kill a cat. It's gonna give you like less life force than if you kill a person.
Yeah.
If you kill something bigger, you're gonna get more, right?
Okay, I'm asking this question because okay, so say you're the sorcerer or whatever, and you put up a rabbit trap, and you capture a rabbit, and then you sacrifice it. Is the meat still good to put on the Barbie for the the party or whatever? Like
that's that's interesting. I haven't thought of that. I think I'm probably gonna say no. I haven't like probably the meat's gonna get tainted.
Yeah,
that's an interesting twist. I'm gonna add that. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, because otherwise it'd be too easy.
Yeah, because you just sit there with your traps, and just like the ranger goes out or whoever goes out and captures a bunch of things and brings them back.
Killing a rabbit though wouldn't give you much in terms of like a magic, because it's small creature, not sentient and stuff like that, right?
It's still like even like a deer or something is wounded, or and then you club him on the head and drag him back for the final throat slit.
Arun asks, have you run into balance issue around mage versus fighter? I would imagine it's less a thing if fighter have special ability attacks like AoE cleave. The thing is like the game I'm making is classless, so you don't really have like mage and fighter. You have people that can use magic and people that can use sword or weapon and so like that, and they can be both. And also in character creation, that's something I do. Magic, starting with magic is pretty rare.
That's
possible. What?
That's what I'm thinking too. Like magic would be a scholarly endeavor, and you'd have to focus in on that. But like you could start off as a fighter and choose to learn a spell or two.
Well, you learn you gain skill.
combat.
You gain skill in magic, right? And it's like everything else. Like you're gonna gain skill by using it. Magic, it's a skill that you can open up. Some of them, to open up the skill, you sometimes have to perform some stuff. Like you have to be chosen by a god, or you have to because like learning magic is pretty risky. So you want to be like oftentimes mentored and stuff like that, because otherwise like you have roll to make, and if you fail, spell can blow up in your face and shit like that, right? So what I was saying, I lost my train of thought. So you could start with some experience in magic, in a magic skill, but it's pretty uncommon, because also like the reasoning was, I often say like the interesting part of your character should be role played, should be done in game, and learning magic is learning some magic is an interesting part of a character, I believe. So so I wanted something that you develop your character into it. You might have an interest, you might have started some learning, you can have like some experience, you're gonna be like a novice, and then how far you go, because it's level less as well, and you gain experience by using it. The balance issue is kind of moot, right? Because it's classless, level less, right? You're just gonna have like more experience in some skill. as play go, right? And oftentimes, like also like there's not gonna be like this niche protection as either, because if your old group spend a lot of time sneaking, well, everybody's gonna kind of get better at sneaking and stuff like that. If you cast a lot of spell, you're gonna get better at casting spell. If you don't, well, then you always gonna be a kind of a novice at casting spell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. It's not really an issue because it's not because of the type of game it is. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's like a thing I would like. Like, I would like to try your game sometime. We're gonna get 2 or 3 people together and run through a scenario or something.
Yeah,
like
at
that.
some point I'll do it. I need to get back to writing now with the move and all. Like it kind of like delayed me quite a bit, and now I need to build a bunch of furniture because I have nothing.
Are you gonna IKEA it or buy some wood?
Buy some wood.
Good man.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm an handyman.
Well, you only need fucking 3 tools, for God's sake.
I got a pretty good set of tools. Table
No,
runner.
I said need.
Yeah.
Well,
the previous couch I had built. I didn't move it, but I had built only with hand tool. So
yeah,
a plane and chisel and handsaw. Yeah. So it's something I wanted to do like by hand at some point, just to see if I could. I could, but I could do better with my power tool.
Well, faster and cleaner, right?
Faster and cleaner. It makes things much easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crispy said that reminded me of a 3.5 day when our good character would joke about having a bag of kitten just in case the alignment would change was needed. Yeah, that's a bit.
Well, if you're playing an evil character, you know.
Well, it's harder to switch back to good though. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go through a path of atonement. Maybe you give up magic.
What's his FNG tree?
I have no idea, bro.
I don't know what it is, Phil Trill. I'm sorry.
This is why I fucking hate acronyms, bro. It's the 21st century. Stop using them. It's Game Master, not GM. It's Dungeons and Dragons, not D&D.
Wow.
Sorry. It's Dung and Dipshits, not D&D.
Dice was wanted to talk about the countdown dice. But you know what? I don't know if he's still listening or what. I think I'm gonna start wrapping up here, and I'm gonna keep those topic. I think we can do a part 2 to this talk. Go a little further on because the other thing I want to talk about, like now we talk about resource management. Like we didn't talk about push your luck really. I want to talk about that as well. We didn't talk about those countdown dice. I think that's an interesting topic as well. What else? Deck building. Can we have some kind of I guess it's almost like when you get those class feature and stuff like that. There's still a lot of mechanics we can. I'm often looking at what we see in other type of game and see what we can bring in RPG and what has been brought in RPG and how they affect the role play. But I think for tonight, I think I'm gonna go put my dog outside and we went almost 2 hours and a half. I think it's a good talk.
Yeah. It's better than being here until next week, like we've done in the past.
Oh, okay. Phil the Thrill was talking to Crispy. Fucking new guy 3. Yeah.
Fucking new guy 3.
Yeah, Crispy was doing a show on his channel, which you should watch, called Fucking New Guy, where he's talking about him joining our campaign. And Crispy, you have nothing to be worried about. You're a fucking great addition to our campaign. Now our campaign is on hold too. I need to find a new game. It's on hold until the holiday. But yeah. All right. I want to thank everybody that joined in the chat. So what do we got? We got Justin, we got Bear, we got RPG Grandma, we got Ryan, the curator, we got Dice Tale. Am I forgetting somebody? No. And everybody that joined in chat and in the text chat there on the side. and
Yeah.
everybody that watch and everybody that watch on the replay.
Yeah,
And I hope this was helpful to somebody and give you something to think about.
definitely. I expect every one of you to start writing a game right now and be done before me.
Oh, yeah, or before me, yeah. I'm taking forever to do that.
I'm putting almost no effort into it.
I haven't been doing like I'm like like you said, I wrote already like 900 page, like you said.
I don't think I've got a full page written.
If you want to look at what I've been working on, the link on the description below down here.
It's an interesting read.
If you go read it, and I'm always like welcoming, like I always welcome comments. It's useful for me as well. If something fuck, I'm losing my tongue now. If something I've written is not clear, thank you everybody for listening again. And I don't know when I'll be back on. I like to try to put more content in now that I move and stuff like that. I still my life is still quite disorganized because, like I said, I couldn't bring my furniture, so now I have to build some.
You should do some streams designing their furniture.
Yeah, well, I was working on that today. Like I got all my starting like drawing my plan there about how I'm gonna go about it, right? But I kept the cushion from my previous couch because like
You're going to transition the channel to a working one.
Yeah, exactly. Building stuff for no. I thought about like doing like, should I do like a general kind of like a talk channel, but no, I want to talk about gaming. That's what is interesting.
Yeah, you could probably throw it up on your workout channel.
On my workout channel.
Yeah,
I need to get back to that as well. I need to install my gym there, but
yeah, well, that you can definitely do that on that. That's so relevant to that topic. Installing your gym.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, there's already like a lot of good content in that niche.
It doesn't matter if there's good content. It's not your content.
Yeah, some people are better than me at that.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
That's why I talk about gaming. Lack of good content on gaming. All right, now we're just like saying shit. All right, take care, everybody. I'm ending the stream now. Bye.
Party on. Remember, communism, RPGs.
Yeah, role playing is communism.